Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Pundits podcast. We are on episode 13 now.
It's been a while.
It's been since the 22nd of September since the last time we uploaded an episode.
We left everyone waiting for that long.
We did. Yeah. Bet they thought we weren't coming back.
No.
Yeah.
Did you think, to be honest, Dave?
Yeah, I knew we were going to, because, we had a lot of, I started back in university, you were working, and it just was like, it was impossible. Yeah. Like the last episode we did was when we did like remotely.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It was tough to get it to work. Yeah. But hey.
We've got a base now,
we're back. We're at the Everyday Pundits hub.
Yeah.
And just if this is the first time you're tuning in, I'm Nathan, and I'm joined, as always. Actually, not as always, sometimes probably from now on always. Yeah, I'm joined by co-host Evan.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good.
Glad to be back.
It feels good to be back, so yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to carry on sort of as normal schedule now, hoping to be every week again after so many weeks off. We're probably going to release like shorter episodes, maybe break up the topics a bit. Now the football's back, we want to give more time to that. Yeah. And obviously with the F1, we tend to talk a lot about the F1. So we're going to try and split it up into maybe a couple of episodes, do the F1 and some other topics in one, and then do the football and some other topics in that one, I think was the plan, isn't it?
Yeah, because obviously there's such a hectic football schedule coming back, and we love to talk about the F1, so if we can dedicate more time to that, then probably for the better.
Yeah, definitely. So before we get into it, as always, our social medias will be down in the description if you're watching on YouTube. We are hoping to get some video footage coming out in future episodes as and when we can get that facilitated. But we're pretty active, mostly on Instagram more than anywhere else. So go and chuck us a follow on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter too. We're going to try and be more active on those. But yeah, definitely chuck us a follow on Instagram. And let's get into it, Ev.
Yep.
So we had the Bahrain Grand Prix today.
Great race to come back to be fair.
Yeah, but I think to start with, what I would love to say is we're both so thankful that Romain Grosjean is walked away relatively unscathed compared to the scale of the accident that he had.
What we saw compared to what the outcome is in terms of injuries is mind-boggling. How he's only escaped with like minor burns. Obviously, we don't know the full extent yet because they haven't released that, but that was just so scary. Like,
it was terrifying. I remember, I was sat there watching the race start, and then you're watching the cars come down the straight, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's this giant fireball, which you just don't see these days.
You saw the Haas veer off right, and you're like, oh, okay, that's going to be a big one. But then you saw the angle at which he went in, and you saw this massive fireball, like you said, and it was just like, oh god, it was one of those moments in racing where you just look at it and you're like, that could be that could be the big one that everyone talks about. Where
you're sat there panicking a little bit until
literally,
you get news. Like I was sat there sort of like fiddling and playing with my hands and just waiting for some word that everything was all right, because you see an accident like that. Yeah, maybe 20 years ago, big fireballs and crashes and cars in pieces were a lot more common than they are nowadays. But it never is nice to see that. Like I can't genuinely remember seeing a car split in half like that.
No. Or just the fight, even just the fight. Like I know we've seen cars when they've crashed, but
especially in the era of bigger engines, you would see a lot more engine fires and stuff like that. But
and when they used to refill them in the pit stops, you see a lot of that and people being set on fire. But that was frightening. I was literally shaking. I was stunned. Literally, I was stunned to silence for most of it when it was going on, until obviously Crofty on the commentary was like, okay, we've got news that he's okay and he's in the medical car, and it was like just a massive relief. Like obviously we don't know Romain Grosjean, but when it's just one of those things, you're like, you don't know what to do.
Yeah,
you don't know what to say.
Nasty accident, and really it all stemmed from something so simple as really just a touch of front on rears from one car, and then I mean the barrier was not ideally placed where it was.
No,
and you would expect that a barrier wouldn't just split open like that when a car hits it, when it's kind of designed for cars to be hitting at 140 plus miles an hour.
But like Brundle said, because it's on the straight and it's right at the start of the straight, you're not used to seeing.
No,
they obviously haven't prepared for a car to go
head on into it.
Yeah, head on, and they're not used to it. So obviously it's like it was a steel or metal barrier that he's gone through, and he's literally, it's like Robin Hood shot an arrow. He's literally gone straight through it.
Yeah,
and luckily, again, we got to say it, the halo.
We'd be having a very different conversation right now if the halo was not in place.
No,
it's one of those accidents that when you look at it, you almost think that if the halo hadn't been there, that probably was an unsurvivable crash.
It's tough to speculate what would have happened without the halo, because it would have been so.
You don't want to think. Don't want to think about it, really.
Literally, no.
It's not something you want to think about, but it just goes to show that the FIA and the sport as a whole are trying to make things safer.
Yeah,
and you think like, oh, what is that little halo possibly going to do? Yeah. Well, there you go.
And we've seen so many incidents recently over the last couple of years since it came in. Even Grosjean himself, in that video that we've just seen that F1 released on Twitter, he said, I wasn't a big supporter of the halo to start with.
No.
And he said, it saved my life today. And everyone literally instantly was like, it saved his life, because you could see where he's gone in if that wasn't there.
His car was more in the barrier than out at the front of the car. And, you can see like where the front of the car has gone into the barrier and stopped. And the rear of the car has just carried on going, and it has literally ripped the rear part of the car away from the cockpit, and it doesn't bear thinking about what would have happened if the halo hadn't been there. But big props to the medical team. Great scenes there of the medical staff.
Yeah, big shout out to Dr. Ian Roberts, and obviously the driver Alan van der Merwe, straight on the scene. At one point, the doctor was literally pointing to the marshal where he is and where to start, blowing the extinguishers. Van der Merwe was straight there with the extinguisher.
It really was fantastic to see that, this is what they're trained to do. Yeah. And I think in the commentary they said, them not having to do anything in a race is a good day. Yeah. Because you don't want them to have to be involved, but it goes to show when the time comes and they need to do their job, they won't shirk away. You see the images there of them running towards this blazing inferno, trying to pull Romain Grosjean out the car, and it just goes to show that they'll do their job. And another thing I will say is that it shows that the drivers really do put their lives on the line for this sport.
Oh yeah,
and it's a sport we all love watching, but they really do put themselves at great risk of personal harm.
And as if there hasn't been enough reminders over the last few years of how dangerous the sport is, today just reaffirmed everyone's position of, wow, these guys do risk everything. And this is why it's good listening to the commentators and having the commentary on, because obviously you had Brundle, you had Damon Hill, you had obviously Karan Chandok, you had everyone saying, he was in there for a good 18 to 20 seconds just in the fire.
I know.
Struggling to get out. And, again, it's one of those things, it's fight or flight, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you could see the fire was burning so hot. Oh. You couldn't even see Romain Grosjean until he got out of the car. No. And for him to sustain the injuries that he has of a crash of that magnitude, it's just mind-boggling. I think you said it's just boggling to me. And I'm so glad that we're having this conversation now rather than a very different conversation where Romain Grosjean may have sustained serious life-threatening or life-ending injuries,
we're probably talking about life-ending. If we're serious about it, we're probably talking life-ending without all the safety precautions, the medical car. Because, again, Brundle was saying a few years ago that wouldn't have been a case where the medical car, like they said, if it was a few turns later, who knows? Because it pulls off it.
Terrifying.
Because obviously the cars will catch him up. But again, like we said, we're just so thankful that we saw him getting out, and he's being pulled to the medical car, and he's obviously got injuries. You're going to sustain injuries there, but it's just so much better to see him up in
climbing out of the car on his own 2 feet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and literally just like they said, they thought he was. I think the telemetry's on board. It said it was putting 50 plus G's of force.
Crazy. Well, Romain Grosjean, I doubt very much you will hear us on this podcast, but best of luck to you in your recovery. We're all the fans of the sport. We're all so thankful that you've managed to walk away from this crash, and we hope to see you back in a race car soon as possible.
Yep. And so
again, carry on.
I was just going to say again, just last thing, big props to the FIA with all the safety, and we're hoping that this is the case, that it's not going to be like Jules or the other, Antoine Hubert, all the other stuff that we've seen recently, and it's going to be, more stuff, just people being able to get out.
Definitely.
And, and saving their lives and everything, because, the Halo came in after Jules, and it's again save someone's life.
Definitely.
So let's move on to something that's hopefully a bit more cheerful. Well, it's not really cheerful for Lance Stroll, is it?
You segued into that one nicely. No, I feel bad for Stroll. That's the thing. We had the red flag.
Yeah.
Then we came back in, and pretty much instantly after the race restart, we had Stroll, hanging upside down in the car.
I mean, after a red flag of someone going into the barriers, the last thing that you want to see is a car upside down.
No, that is exactly the point. You never want to see a car upside down.
No. Obviously, the race was stopped for like an hour or something, so obviously we were eager with anticipation. The restart, they managed to get through half a lap, and about turn 10, I think it is. I'm pretty sure on the layout it's turn 10. You see Lance Stroll a bit further up because they managed to get through turn 10 and then turn 8. Kvyat involved in the earlier incident with Grosjean.
Yeah, through no fault of his own.
No.
Nobody's at fault.
No, nobody's at fault. That was just one of those things.
Racing incident.
He's trying to find a gap, and he's just collided with him. But so going through turn 8, he's gone up the inside of Stroll. Stroll's obviously not seen him, and they've just had a wheel to wheel.
Yeah, and it's just flipped the car over.
Yeah, similar to Esteban Gutierrez and Pastor Maldonado in recent memory, doing the similar thing. Just one of those slow rollers that he's then gone over on the top, and we were like, oh no, here we go again. But safety car came out. He was all fine. Everyone was good. So that was a relief for everyone to see. After
hoping they can salvage a decent amount of that car.
Well, yeah, they got to go racing again next week.
It's a very expensive weekend for Racing Point.
I think this is probably going to be one of the most expensive weekends in F1 for a while.
Yeah,
to be
you're
honest.
not wrong. To be honest,
yeah.
You're not wrong.
So obviously that then stopped the race. So but they had to do it. Safety car. Bottas had a horrible opening few laps. I mean, he got a puncture.
You can't see me, but I'm shaking my head right now because it really was that just terrible day for Valtteri Bottas.
I mean, 2 weeks in a row now, isn't it? He was fighting for the title last week, and now he's just lingering.
Today was bad.
Yeah.
Today was really bad. He had such an awful start off the rip. Like he's, just bogged down, and he has lost. How many places did he drop? 4 places, I think.
Yeah,
before turn 3, I think he was down 4 places.
I think he managed to recover it back to 4th on the restart, and then on the other restart, he's then dropped more places. Just going
because I think he went in for an early pit stop because he had a puncture, and he just couldn't get back up the field. He was lucky to get where I think he just got stuck in traffic. He didn't seem to have that go forward that you often see from Mercs when they're towards the back of the pack. Even from not just from Hamilton, Bottas normally when he's towards that back half of the field, he just has that go forward. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He will just roll over the cars in front of him and get back up to, I'm not saying he's going to go all the way back up to second place, but he'll get into the top 7, 5, 6, 7, 7th place. And you just tend to see that from Mercedes. They're at the back of the pack. They easily breeze past the midfielders and get back into the points. And Bottas was lucky to get in the points, to be honest. Again, it took him 20 laps to get from after his pit stop to 11th place. Yeah. 20 laps.
Again, we've seen the classic thing that the Mercs are front runners. When they're out in clear air and only following maybe one car, they can do it. I mean, I know Hamilton did it at Monza, but that was a lot different circuit. There's a lot less downforce. But when they're following a big pack of cars, they do struggle because their aero just gets affected. And
although I will say the yellow flag at the end probably worked out quite well for Daniel Ricciardo.
A few people,
because I think Bottas probably would have overtaken him.
Yeah.
And he may have caught the next one up as well. I don't know who was in front of Leclerc. No, it wasn't Leclerc. I don't know who it was. Gasly was it?
Gasly was ahead, yeah.
He probably may have very well caught Gasly as well.
Yeah,
but
he recovered it nicely at the end, but that was because of a lot of stuff that went on, which we'll get into a bit later.
Yes.
Obviously. I thought two of the drivers who had great days with the McLarens.
Yeah, Lando and Carlos are both looking really good, I gotta say.
Finally showing what they've had again, especially Lando.
Showing what they can do. The last couple of races, I know we haven't commented on them on the podcast, but we have been, it's not that we haven't been watching them. We have been watching all the sport we normally watch, but for me, Lando, it was just like, come on, you can do better than this. For the last 3 or 4 races, I was just like, come on, Lando, this is not the Lando that we saw from the first 4 races.
No.
And we know Lando can do a lot better. And I'm glad today that he did that, because he was quite an understated drive from him. You didn't hear very much about him in the commentary. He wasn't featured that much. But I think McLaren probably feeling very good in the Constructors' Championship after today's race. I think Racing Point are probably feeling absolutely awful for the Constructors' Championship.
They actually couldn't have had a worse day.
No, they really couldn't have had a worse day.
No.
And we'll come on to Perez in a bit. But yeah, both McLarens, you didn't really hear very much about them.
Nope, but a good 4th and 5th. So
exactly, and it's a shame. I'm glad Albon got a podium.
Yeah.
Very lucky to get one.
Yeah, but
with
again,
Checo going out. But
again, going back to the McLarens, though, like we said, it's been hard watching Lando and Sainz struggling, because they showed so much promise in the middle and early sector of the season. And
early season, McLaren were flying. They were flying.
Have they had a lot of bad luck in certain situations? Yes, but have they given themselves that luck? Yeah, because they haven't really performed as well as we thought they would have, because they built themselves up to such a level early that we were like, okay, well, they're going to walk 3rd or 4th here because they've got the car. And then everyone else, whether or not they've just started developing for 2021 and they've given up on this season, it's tough to tell, because we don't, obviously we're not insiders, we don't know what was the goings on there. But much better race, Lando putting in some beautiful moves, late braking, Carlos Sainz as well on Leclerc going into turn 1.
Yeah, definitely.
Some good overtakes today, which was refreshing.
Yeah, there were some good overtakes. I think a lot of people were worried about how entertaining the circuit would be, just from the point of view that, again, we won't talk about that too much, but it did actually turn out to be quite, after we got past the absolute horror in the beginning and everyone just being terrified, it did actually turn out to be an all right race, really. Yeah,
well, we've seen previously at Bahrain, we had last year with all the drama with Leclerc's engine, and we've had obviously the duel in the desert with the 2 silver arrows where Hamilton came out on top. There's been a lot of action there. It's not the most entertaining because there's not a load of overtaking position.
No,
but then again,
I agree.
That's most circuits nowadays because of the aero and the speed and the follow and the wake. But that's a lot of external factors that some teams can't handle.
I think that's why the new rule changes that will come in after next year, I think will probably shake up the way F1 has been for the past 4 or 5 years. It'll be quite a big shift based on what we've seen about what is going to happen with the cars and the way everything works. But I think I would have really liked to have seen George Russell get in the points today. I'm desperate for the man to score a point.
Every time you see it, it's one of those running jokes online. If you see him going close to the points, don't say anything, because he's been jinxed. He's been jinxed before, and it just doesn't seem to. It's just not happening for him. He's missed a Saturday again. He's 36-0 in qualifying. He hasn't been beaten by his teammate in qualifying so far in his professional career, but it's hard because we just want to see him get a point. He needs that point.
Yeah, and the thing is, the kid's got so much talent. Yeah, and I'll keep bigging up George Russell no matter what he does. I will big him up.
Even after he gets his first point,
I will keep bigging him up.
So obviously we referenced Racing Point, and I think we should get to them because obviously there's a big scrap for that 3rd spot in the constructors. You've got McLaren, Racing Point, Renault, and Ferrari are all the contenders.
I think McLaren will be feeling very good after today, I think.
Well, they've got 27 points to Renault now, and they've got 17 back to Racing Point. And Racing Point, again, it was one of the worst weekends. You had Stroll going on his roof, and then you had Checo Perez, who was...
I felt so bad for him.
He's never had back-to-back podiums in his career. He was running a race of his own, and then 4 laps to go. They have a shot of him coming down, going a bit slowly, and the back of the car, the power unit is just completely failed, and he gets around turn 11.
I think they said turbo failure. I might be misquoting there, but
yeah, but whatever it is, it's an internal thing, and they've.
Well, I was watching the smoke come out as he was going. I said that is going to catch fire if in any second now, and then the next time just bursts into flame.
Yeah, and then he gets around the corner, and then there's the flames coming from it, and you're like, Checo, get out. get out of there.
And we'd had enough fires for the day.
Yeah.
But I felt so bad. He drove a really good race,
And
managed his tyres exquisitely, as he always does. A very good driver when it comes to tyre management. I just felt bad. He deserved it. He deserved the third place spot. He outdrove Alex Albon by massive stretch.
And people may be thinking, oh, well, it's just a race. It doesn't really have that much bearing. But these are millions of pounds and dollars we're talking about.
Yeah.
Where they could just lose just because they've had two unfortunate retirements from the race. That could cost them now third.
Yeah, and let's be honest, Sergio Perez's engine, whole powertrain, it's got to go. Yeah. More than likely. There's no chance of salvaging much of the power unit, really.
Yeah, and probably
with a catastrophic failure like that. So that in itself is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And probably the second saddest sight of the weekend was just the Otmar Safnauer. Everyone's left him. He's just there alone in the area where all the on the pit wall. He's just alone, head in his hands for a good 5 minutes, just like what's gone on. You can't. It's just so sad to see because they've had a great few races. They've had a great season.
Yeah, you gotta hand it to Racing Point because they come sort of out of nowhere.
Listen, Racing Point, Pink Panther, Pink Mercedes,
what you want to call it,
whatever you want to say about the season, how they've got here, you can't knock the results that they've had. They were unlucky not to get a win in Turkey, and it's a shame. But they'll be back next week. Obviously, it's Bahrain in the very fast sub 1 minute lap time. They think
Bahrain Junior circuit.
Yes, Bahrain Junior, the
karting circuit.
It does look. It's going to be incredible to see.
Yeah,
Formula NASCAR is here, lads. It's weird, but so
well, I guess good day for Red Bull, double podium.
Great day. They've never had a podium at Bahrain before,
really,
in this new era. Since obviously, and then they get a double podium, which is unbelievable for them. They probably would have, I don't want to say they would have been planning for a double podium, but they would have hoped for a double podium.
They would have hoped, and really Albon only ended up on the podium because Sergio's had a catastrophic failure. But he didn't drive too bad, Albon. He had a good start. He had a good start as well. He stuck his neck out at the start to make up places on the grid, which was fair play to the kid.
It's what you want to see from a driver who's been
down on his luck.
And there's been a lot of rumours circulating, and a lot of momentum's been gathered up that he will be replaced by the man who went out. Yeah, surprisingly. And
I'll be honest, I like Alex Albon. I don't want to see him out of the sport, but I think it's just become too much of a toxic atmosphere at Red Bull for him. It's never going to work now. It's not going to. It's a bit like Seb at Ferrari. Even if Ferrari turned around tomorrow and said, actually, Seb, do you want a new contract? It just wouldn't work. There's been too much stuff that's gone on. And
if you were to say, outside of Lewis Hamilton, obviously, if you were going to say driver of the season, you're going to say it's either going to be Gasly or it's going to be Perez.
Yeah.
And speaking of Gasly, that's what I'm trying to reference to, is that Albon maybe needs to have a look at that spare seat AlphaTauri if they're not going to give it to Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, and I don't want to see Gasly move either. I think Gasly's really stepped up to the plate for AlphaTauri, and I don't think moving to a team...
Best thing he could have done.
Yeah, well, honestly. I know people say, he should be at like a main team, if you like.
He referenced that Red Bull didn't really even give him a look in. Like, Helmut Marko didn't even consider bringing him back for another year. And I know it's probably... Listen, all the drivers want to be in the best car. Obviously, you want to be in the fastest car and have the best chance to win. And he's had a taste of it at Monza, so he wants to win. But I'm not going to bemoan it for him that he's not in Red Bull.
The way I look at it is that if you're going to have somebody who's going to drive with Max, it shouldn't be a young driver who's yet to prove themselves, because they're always going to come second best. You need somebody like Sergio Perez, and we don't want F1 to come down to money. We don't want it to come down to that. And somebody who brings big sponsors to the table and has that bargaining chip and says, well, Sergio Perez, if he's not being treated right at Red Bull, they say, fine, I'll just take my sponsor money somewhere else. One of the richest men in the world is behind me.
Yeah, and
if you don't want me, I'll take my sponsor money somewhere else. If you're going to treat me, badly, like you have Alex Albon, because I do feel like Albon has not been treated well.
No.
But, you need somebody like that. If you're going to have someone drive alongside Max Verstappen, who, let's be honest, is a future world champion.
Oh, yeah.
And,
no doubt.
And
no doubt.
if you're going to have somebody who's going to drive alongside him, you need somebody who has got that thing. Like, because with the younger drivers like Albon, like Gasly,
you need the Bottas.
They can just push them to the side, really, can't you?
You need the Bottas to your Hamilton, the Barrichello to your Schumacher. If you're going to seriously challenge, you're going to need someone who's going to take his ego out of it and look what's best for the team.
Yeah.
And not put himself in silly situations. Like, listen, we all know how talented Alex is. We're not trying to say
and
he's
that's
not.
what I'm saying. I'm not trying to say Albon's not talented at all. But when you've had such a tumultuous season and all these issues that have gone on, things being said in the press, bit of back and forth throughout the whole season, you're not going to drive well.
And I think him going to AlphaTauri could be the perfect thing, just like Gasly, where it could just reinvigorate
he is his
him.
own driver.
Yeah.
He's got nobody else to live up to. Him and Gasly in the team together, it's not like one of them is a better driver than the other.
No.
And, they're constantly having to come second best to each other. And that's why I think of all the drivers on the grid who could make it work at Red Bull, the only ones I think that are actually not going to be in seats are Sebastian Vettel and Sergio Perez. I don't think any other of two drivers on the grid could make it work at the current iteration of Red Bull.
No.
Just because those two have bargains. Seb's a 4-time world champion.
Yeah.
He's a great of the modern era of the sport. And Sergio Perez has proven himself time and time again at multiple teams. Yeah. And he has massive financial backing.
And
they will not let themselves be stepped all over.
This is why, as much as I do like Hülkenberg, and I still maintain he should be in the sport.
Absolutely, he should be in the sport.
It's one of those things where Perez can and easily take his ego out of it and look what's best for the team, whereas Hülkenberg, we know all the stuff that comes to Hülkenberg. He's never had a podium, most starts without a podium and everything, and it's one of those things. He's got something to prove. He can't just go in there and be the second driver to Max. He'd have to go in and prove, okay, I belong here again. And so I don't think Hülkenberg would be the right shout. I do think Perez, if you're going to replace Albon, would be the perfect driver. But
now Seb Vettel is off the table.
Yeah.
Perez is the only option I think that will feasibly work at Red Bull, because I feel like after the way they've after the way they've handled the whole Albon situation, I don't think you'll have. I mean, you say all drivers want to be at the best car, but I wouldn't want to drive at Red Bull after seeing how the way that the teams are set up is so heavily in Max's favour.
Unless your name's Max, of course.
Max, because he gets everything his own way.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I wouldn't want to personally drive at Red Bull in the current iteration.
No, I agree. And I think Vettel, the best thing that he's done was move away from Red Bull, because people have now embraced him and have not seen him as this cocky guy and this, me, Red Bull. And getting from under Horner can do that to you. And not blaming Horner necessarily, he can't control how he is, or how the team is run. But it's one of those things, and we'll see at the end of the year. I'm starting to lean more towards the fact that it's going to be Albon again. Which, listen, if it is good, I hope he can kick on now. But I think if I was running it, I would demote him back down to AlphaTauri. Not trying to knock his confidence, not saying you're good enough, but just say, look, he needs a couple more years.
He needs a switch of team more than anything. Yeah. He needs a change of scenery.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the man of this season who has had let's be honest, one of the best, most record-breaking seasons in the history of Formula One.
Any record you can name, he's basically got it now.
Yeah, I think the only record he doesn't have is highest win percentage.
Yeah,
which is
win percentage.
Fangio.
Yeah.
Fangio has that.
But
record.
That was different. There was a lot less races.
Yeah, definitely. But in terms of most races won.
Yeah, he's going to get laps led. He's going to get laps led next week. He was 63 behind Michael, and he's just led 54 or something, 55. So
he's got most wins, drawn world championships. What else has he got?
Most poles. He'll have most laps led. He's going to have basically everything now.
Yeah.
He is, and obviously now he's got his 7th world title last week under a phenomenal drive in Turkey, where he drove intermediates through to slicks and just said to the team, look, don't bring me in.
Absolute stroke of genius.
And again, this is what we're talking about with Red Bull, the environment. You look at him, Toto, Bonington, James Vowles, all the Mercedes team have created this environment with Lewis. It's Lewis and everyone else. It's Lewis is part of the team. It's all a team with them. And they all work for each other. And, you notice every time he wins, it's always thanks to, it's always about the team. And he's just created an environment there, him and Toto, that is, you can't get better than Mercedes and you can't get better than Lewis right now.
No.
Fully deserving of his 7th world title. Everyone's going to point to the fact, he's got the fastest car. But people always forget that, well, in a sport where you're driving fast, you need the fastest car. People don't bring up when Vettel...
And they forget that Lewis has made some amazing drives, won some amazing races when he wasn't in the fastest car.
Yeah, but he's won a race in every season he's been in.
Look
F1.
at when he first came to Mercedes. Yep. Look at the car he was driving when he first came to Mercedes. Was nowhere near the best car.
Red Bulls were 20, 30 seconds up the road and he still managed to get a win. And he's just supremely gifted, obviously. He's the best driver around at the moment. He's top 3 all time. He's up there with Senna and Schumacher, Fangio. He's up there with all of them. And
you can't argue with that. No matter what, you can't. Look at Bottas. Bottas is in exactly the same car, and he's finishing consistently at least 5, 6, sometimes 10, 20 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. And people, you can make the argument, blah, 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 he's got the best car. Bottas ain't doing that. He's in exactly the same car. And Bottas is not doing what Lewis Hamilton's doing.
And here's the thing: Rosberg is probably people say about his teammates, but Rosberg pushed him, and Rosberg nicked it in 2016, but with better reliability in Malaysia, and he'd probably be on 8 now, and he would have won it.
8 is not far away, based on the fact that there won't be that many changes made to the cars next year, and this Mercedes, if anything, will, unless they do a Ferrari and completely screw up the car, then probably Mercedes again next year, and the tip of the spear is Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, he is.
And I mean, Bottas at the way he's driving, he's way back down. Like halfway down the handle of the spear.
Yeah, he is. He is not. But again, you need a perfect... This is why Mercedes has been so dominant. They've had drivers that will get results. Yeah, that when Lewis and Nico were there, they were bickering a lot and it wasn't great. But last year, I know Ferrari had an illegal engine, but they weren't the quickest car.
No.
And he still won. People always point, he's got the fastest car. Yeah, but he's the best driver he's in the best car because he's got the best performance. But it's not just about how quick you are. It's about you watch his tyre management. Everyone else's tyres fall off a cliff. Yeah, he complains a lot. Some of it is gamesmanship and tactics to to the drivers. Yeah, to the drivers behind him. Like, Lewis's tyres aren't working. Push, and he knows what he's doing in that cockpit. He's just going to manage. He's going to be like, okay, I got this.
I think when he's at the front of the race and he's out in front and having to sort of have people behind him and manage the race from the front, I think that's really when you see how good Lewis Hamilton is. Because people can lead a race, but they don't really know how to manage the drivers behind them, which is why I think Lewis is so good at that. Keeping the pace, making sure his tyres, and he knows exactly how, when he has to push to put space between him and drivers behind. Like, that is really where Lewis Hamilton shines when he's out in front.
The master craftsman.
He can come from miles back down the road and pass it. He can do that, but when he's out in front, he is just cut above everyone else. Really is cut above.
You look at last year, you look at last week. When at Turkey, it wasn't going his way. He wasn't liking the intermediates. The Mercedes was not the quickest car. Red Bull were so much quicker in the wet at Turkey, mainly because of the new asphalt and everything. The Mercedes didn't switch onto the track, but he drove that from 6th. He was struggling to get past a Ferrari, not a good Ferrari. This current year's Ferrari. And what did he do? He just stuck in, put in his lap times, and just drove the car into a win that. Really, if we're being honest, no one else but him could have done that.
Exactly.
In that same car. If you put Max or anyone in that car, they're pitting again and they're asking for new tyres. But he was calm. Him and Bonington have got this unbelievable relationship where they're basically like mates. They're just, it's not a boss and a
I think they just
assistant.
have that trust in each other where when one says to the other, if the Mercedes team say to Lewis, your tyres are fine, stay out, race, he might not like it, but he'll do it because he has faith.
You'll hear if he doesn't like it.
Yeah, he has faith in his team that they know what they're doing. And in the same way, if Lewis says, shut up, let me race, they'll go, okay, fair, we'll do that because they trust each other. But that's how they're so good together.
Outside of a couple of instances, you never hear him throw a fit or complain, like, bring me in that. Like, if they say it, he'll question it. He'll be like, are you sure? But he won't undermine Bonington or the team's decision to stay out. And, again, like with managing tyres, you see everyone's putting in these fast laps, and Hamilton's matching them, but not wearing his tyres because he knows how far he needs to push. He just plays cat and mouse with everyone.
Definitely. Again, I don't think Lewis Hamilton's tuning in today, but big congrats from us. You proved yourself beyond any doubt that you're a great of the sport, which, I mean, you proved that quite a while ago, but congratulations on a 7th World Championship.
Arise, Sir Lewis Hamilton.
Yes.
Finally, he's got his knighthood, but again, he's top 3 driver of all time. He's unquestionably the best British driver of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at what everyone talks about. Yeah, the drivers are a bit upset. They get a bit pissy. Oh, he's in the Mercedes. Everyone would win a Mercedes. It's like, but they
don't.
Yeah.
For instance, Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah, you'll get 1 or 2 victories, but you won't have the consistency that Lewis has.
Shall we quickly touch on the rugby?
Yes.
England, Wales. Well,
we have to?
There's a lot of rugby we'd like to talk about. But England, Wales, I'm just going to take this as a critique of Wales's performances of late.
Because it wasn't a great performance from England.
I mean, England they looked much better than Wales, but not as good as the England we've seen in the past 12 months.
No,
probably not 12 months now because, but
this is vaguely reminiscent of when it was 30 points to 3 in when we won the
Six Nations.
The Six Nations.
I was there. I was at that game.
But it's reminiscent of that. Like England came in with all this hype. Wales came into this year with a lot of hype.
I think Wales came back off the back of an unbelievable run of form, and then they just jumped off a cliff, mate. Because I don't know what has been. I think I've touched on this before on previous episodes, but
definitely,
I have reaffirmed now in my personal belief what is going wrong at Wales. And for me, it's too drastic of a game plan change with not drastic enough of a team change. That, to me, is what it boils down to. Like, Gatland, people underestimate Gatland's genius, almost, if you want to call it that, of the team that he built to do a job.
The Jose of rugby, I call it.
He built that team to do one job, which was defend and run crash balls off 10. And it worked. And it worked because he built that team to do just that purpose. And that was to box kick out of 22, to defend like no other team has ever defended, and to basically run crash balls off Dan Biggar and play on the counter-attack with fast wingers, which is essentially what Warren Gatland did.
Yep.
And then Pivac has come in and inherited this team that's really good at doing that and go, actually, we're not going to do that. We're going to do something completely different. And we're going to try and play fast-flowing rugby and defend tight channels. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. It looks like somebody trying to ride a mountain bike in the Tour de France. It just doesn't work, mate. I'm sorry. It just doesn't.
It's one of those things. Obviously, we've been spoiled by Gatland's success, but we forget how boring the rugby was.
Oh, yeah, it was boring. Don't get me wrong. I am not... Watching Warren Ball was boring we never played flowy rugby.
But you knew what you'd expect. Yeah.
It worked because that's the whole point. That team was built to do that job. That's why we had some of the best defensive. We had Sam Warburton, we had Dan Lydia, we had Talupi Faletau, we had Dan Biggar, Tipperick, Justin Davis. They are some of the best defensive players especially in the Northern Hemisphere teams.
Yep.
And that was because that team was literally built to defend, run crash balls off 10 and play on the counter-attack. And it worked because that team was built to do that job. And then when you go, actually, we want you to play Southern Hemisphere style, flowy, fast rugby from a team of pretty much defensive players.
Yeah.
And we don't want you to defend, nice and spread out and stop teams making yours. What we actually want you to do is crowd the breakdown, not win any turnovers, and then... Because if you look... when
when they do win turnovers, it's sloppy.
Do anything.
Exactly.
It's so frustrating.
The ill discipline in the team is a bit.
Discipline is shocking. It's terrible. Man.
I think the another issue is he tried to bring it in for the first couple of games. Clearly realised that I haven't got the players that I need. Tried to revert back to how Gatland set the team up and played, and now he's got this jumbled squad of veterans and people who don't understand what system they're playing.
The thing is, I think the team that Warren built, the players, I'm not saying they're not good players. They're great players. But the problem I have is that they can't do what Wayne Pivac is asking them to do. It's not that they can't do it, but that's just not what they've done for 10 years. What you need to do, if you want to change up the style that drastically, get rid of a bunch of players and bring in new players.
I think this is the issue with the Welsh team and Pivac, if he's going to be successful, he needs to stamp his authority on this team and say, look, take the politics out of it, because we all love Alan Wynne. He's been a great bastion to the game. He's old now. He needs to go because he can't carry on in this team because it's not set up for him.
No.
But you look at some of the players we've been bringing in, some of these, again.
Like Louis Rees-Zammit fits Pivac's game style to a T. Lee Halfpenny is, in the Wayne Pivac style of rugby, he can't feature in it. Again, he can't feature in that team if that's the way they want to play.
And like you made the great point when we were watching it.
He's unbelievable.
If he loses his long kicking, which was his greatest asset, what use does he have over Liam Williams, who was...
He was the best 15 in the world for a whole of 2019. Yeah. But the thing for me is Lee Halfpenny, for 10 years, he was the last man for Wales. He was always the last man. And in a defensive team, you better know that you better be a bloody good tackler if you're going to be the last man in a defensive orientated team. And he was the last man. He was always the man there that when everything else went wrong and the line had been broken, you knew Lee Halfpenny would put in a solid tackle. And now that they don't play that game style anymore, he just doesn't fit in that because he's not an offensive player. Yeah. He's great under a high ball, but you never see Lee Halfpenny like doing these crazy flowing rugby style things. Like that's where Louis Rees-Zammit comes in for me. He is phenomenal at that style of rugby. If you look at him on the ball, when he gets the ball, he's a bit like Stockdale for me. Yeah, similar spark that we need in the team. That like what Stockdale is for Ireland. Like when Stockdale has the ball for Ireland, you think you go, oh God, what's he going to do now? And that's what Zammit does for me.
Again, like I said, if you're going to do that, you've got to beat, because I think if we have Josh Adams, Louis Rees-Zammit, Liam Williams, you can't really, you're not going to go wrong with the back three in the. But again, it goes back to the thing of, I'd rather go down lose. I don't want to lose, but if we're going to lose, I'd rather us lose playing Welsh rugby, old Welsh rugby, not Warren ball. I'd rather us go down, play attacking rugby. If we go down swinging, I'd rather have that than what we've witnessed in the last 12 months.
Ragtag band of players that don't really fit together. They just don't fit as a team. No. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't work.
And there's so many glaring issues like the scrummaging. I don't think I've seen worse Welsh scrummaging. I will say about
England. Their front row absolutely
monsters.
Dominated Wales. Just was not good. The set piece as a whole just not good enough. No. The last two games Wales have played, they've been lucky not to have a front row player carded and sent off. Yeah. Because like Reece Carey was the one. I think he probably should have had a yellow card.
Oh yeah.
Against, was it Ireland they played?
Ireland, yeah.
He should have had a yellow card against that. He had a horrible game. But he was kind of set up to fail, to be honest, by the management. But yeah, England was just all over. Vunipola just was like, right, this is just another day at the shop for me. I'm just going to go and do what I normally do, dominate other scrums. And it just was so easy for him.
However, I will say the one thing that I love to see with the front up tackles and some of the hits in the defensive line was so much better than just arms and branches, like they used to say. There was so many big hits. We turned the ball over from stuff that I haven't seen for a while in rugby, up hits. And if we can just start working it in, it's going to be a process. We knew it was going to be a process. Going from Gatland of this long period of success.
How long does he need though? He's had how many games he had under his belt now, Pivac?
8.
8 games. He needs to make more changes for me. I need to see.
Is it like 8 to 10 games?
I need to see changes. I don't mind if it'd be different if he was making changes and it wasn't working, but he's not doing anything. What is he doing? He needs to change up the team. You can't just keep on doing this if you want game after game after game.
If you want to go down, play your style. If you're going to go down playing your style and you get fired for it,
fair enough.
We'll be like, okay, you weren't the right guy at the time. If you're going to just revert back to tactics that you don't know.
Don't know. Look, when he was at the Scarlets, I don't even think he had ever used the term defensive rugby ever.
No, it was just open. It was open backyard rugby.
I think as well as glaringly obvious where the problem is from an outside observer. Like for instance, when you watched against England, it was highlighted beautifully. England, I guarantee if you looked at a graph of where the yards England made were, I'd say well north of 50% of the yards England made in offence were down the wing channels, because they've just got this. Wales have got this weird defensive setup now where they just
push into the outside.
They just seem to crowd the breakdown. I'm assuming in an attempt to win turnovers and get the ball back, which they don't do a shocking amount of the time. And then they leave the wing channels wide. Yeah. And then all the teams have to do is just, especially a team like England. I mean, England are a good side. Oh, yeah, they're one of the best sides in the world, in fact. Yeah. I don't know if they noticed that before they decided to go with a stupid defensive tactic.
We hate to admit it, but they're probably they're probably the best team in the world right now.
Yeah, and probably, I would say. So
they're so deep at every position.
Yeah, I would say England probably right now are the best team in the world.
I think the only team in the Northern Hemisphere that beats England is France.
Yeah, and that's because they got Shaun Edwards.
Yeah, and you see how...
It's the Shaun Edwards effect, mate.
You see how much they've come on in the last few months under Shaun Edwards. It's, Shaun Edwards didn't want to leave, really. If you look at it, he didn't want to leave.
I think he kind of had to go.
But Wales pushed him.
What could Shaun Edwards have done under Wayne Pivac?
But he could have put in more than what he's doing. He could have
worked on something. Wayne Pivac doesn't want to play Shaun Edwards style rugby.
But defensively, we could have. But anyway, this is going to be an ongoing problem, and we'll see what happens from now.
It's going to get worse,
and we'll see what happens. Hopefully, he'll have a few friendlies under his belt.
This highlights a problem for me that started under Gatland, which was not giving new players the time they needed in a Wales shirt. Because you look now they want to switch up the team. Who have they got? Who have they got that's actually got proper experience in a red jersey? No one, because they didn't field young players when they had the chance.
No, you're right. 100%.
And now we've got a point where they're going to have to bring in lots and lots of new players, and it's going to be a bloodbath, mate. I reckon for at least the next 6 months, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath for Welsh rugby. Anyway, one other thing I think you wanted to slip in there.
Well, we just want to quickly touch on the, I'm going to use air quotes but no one can see them, of boxing that we saw last night.
Yes.
Well, we didn't see it. We obviously read about it because I'm not paying £20 for an exhibition fight.
Several highlights.
I watched a lot of highlights, but obviously you had Jake Paul, who knocked out Nate Robinson, the former basketball star. That was not a contest. Knockout. That wasn't a contest. It was
a nice punch.
Good. Listen, Jake's got some power, but Nate didn't belong in that ring. He looked like a guy who just started boxing 3 months ago. Jake's obviously been boxing for like 2 years now.
Yeah.
And it showed the bigger guy. I mean, Nate's 5'9", Jake's over 6 foot. And the power, you could just see the difference. It wasn't really a contest.
It was a big punch.
And that was kind of the theme of the night, because when Roy Jones and Mike Tyson stepped into the hugging fest that they produced in the main event.
He still looks sharp, man.
I still don't want to
return in the ring.
I think it's possible. Do you see his head movement?
Yeah,
his head movement was as good. I know nothing was getting thrown back at him, but his head movement was as good as when he left. If you're being honest, his head movement looked sharp. Yeah, his power wasn't quite there, but it's hard to really gauge in a fight like that if he's got the power. So
yeah, when they're not allowed to knock each other out,
I think he's definitely.
Getting to that point, like they are starting to get on a bit now.
You can see it.
People were annoyed about this. Like, oh, they can't knock each other out. Blah blah. Once you start getting on a bit, you don't want to be being punched in the head repeatedly. Like, it's not good.
We'll see if they run it back, and if they actually, if now that they've had a taste of it, if they go full on, we'll see. I don't really want to see it, but. We'll see. I won't mind seeing like Mike Tyson fight a proper fight.
What do you think of Dubois?
Dubois I feel bad for him. He kind of came in with all this hype against Joe Joyce. It was a good fight for Joe Joyce. He did what the game plan, stuck to his jab, kept him at distance, because we know what Dubois is a banger. He's just going to try and slam him. He almost caught him within the first few rounds, and then Joe Joyce hook obviously damaged the left eye of Dubois. Dubois didn't really recover from that. Obviously his eye swelled up to the point where he couldn't see. Joe Joyce hit him with just a jab and his eye just completely shut. He took a knee because he couldn't continue and the ref waved it off. Right decision from the ref. Dubois, where does he go from here? He's still got talent. Is he a top boxer? No. Can he go? Can he compete again? Yeah, he's going to compete again. We know that. He's a good fighter. He's got power. He's a good heavyweight, but he's not top quality. Like maybe a fight against Chisora maybe would be on the card soon.
For him, I think somebody like Chisora,
someone who's going to bang with him, basically, because I think true boxers like Joe Joyce is a good boxer. He's a veteran. He's obviously British level boxer, but you saw the difference of someone who can really box compared to someone who's a
Heavy
good
hair.
boxer,
Right.
but has got heavy hands. And again, the boxer comes out on top. It's always normally what we see. The boxer comes out on top.
Anything boxing related coming up that you're excited about?
Oh, I can't wait to see Canelo come back. He's fighting Cam Smith. Obviously, we know that
We'll be buying that. For
you know I love me some Canelo. I've basically just indulged myself in a lot of highlights this weekend of Canelo, and I can't wait to see him back. And it'll be good. And I think he's gonna dominate.
We need some heavyweights, man.
See, I like the middleweights. I like
We need some world championship bouts.
We do need some.
There's
bouts.
all these belts flying around. Someone get in a ring and go fight for him.
Well, obviously, the one my other favorite boxer, Vasily Lomachenko, lost to Teofimo Lopez recently at his weight, so that was a bit of a shock. Like, Lopez completely dominated him, if I'm honest. Like, don't know what was up with Lomachenko. He did not look like the Vasily we've seen currently. He looked a shell of himself, and you know, he got outclassed, if I'm honest, in a lightweight bout. So yeah.
Right. Well, it was good to be back, my friend. It
Great to be
felt
back.
really nice to get back, talk about some sports, not over text message. And it's been really good. So we haven't covered any football or any other sports really in this episode. I think there was a T20 series. Probably have a chat about that, as now it's just wrapped up. England clinched the series. We'll have a chat about that on Wednesday. We'll have a chat about the football on Wednesday.
Yep, post Champions League.
Yes, and I'm glad we're back, and we will be back. Well, this will probably go up tomorrow on Monday. And the next episode, I'll probably say it'll be up
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday or Friday. But yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. We hope you are still there, people that listened to us before. Because it's been a good few months now. But yeah, I think I touched on it in the beginning. Social media links are down in the description below. Make sure you follow us on Apple Podcasts, follow us on Spotify, slap that notification button just so you know when we do actually upload. And we'll hopefully have some more sort of video style things, probably from Ev, that content, but we'll hopefully have some more video style short stuff on the YouTube soon.
Yep.
And thanks very much, guys. Cheers, Ev.
Cheers, Nathan.